Hi, this is Kaspar from Volbeat. You're watching Chaoszine.
So hello, Kaspar. How is it going for you and Volbeat at the moment? How's the current European tour been so far?
Well, we just started last week, so we have been playing 3 shows until now, and they have been great, all of them. We played Hamburg, Herning, and Copenhagen, and then we had a few days off, and now we're here in Tampere, which I also think is going to be great, but let's see.
So obviously you are now on the tour to support the Servant of the Mind album. So how has it actually been to play those new songs live?
I mean, we started playing, I think we got a single or 2 out last October. We did a small run in the US last October 2021. And then we went on tour in January and February when the album was out. We had a tour with Ghost, and it's been great. I mean, the response has been very good for the new songs. And we also did a festival run and some summer shows. So we've been playing those songs a lot now. So hopefully they are tight tonight.
So what has been the fans' reactions towards the new material?
I think overall it's been good. A lot of people like that. It's been, the new songs. Some of the new songs are a little bit more heavy, and I can feel that a lot of the fans actually kind of like that. I mean, it's not like returning to some of the old stuff. Of course, the signature sound would be there always, but it's like returning to a new, heavier sound. And I think people seem to like it.
So you are like the newest member of the band, and I wanted to know a little bit more about your background.
Yeah.
So the first question goes that what actually got you into metal music in the beginning with your early days? How old were you, and what were like the first bands that you discovered, and how did it happen actually for you?
Well, it actually didn't start with metal, but it started with me in late '87. I was listening to regular music, and then my sister suddenly had a record by The Cure, and that was very interesting for me, and I totally got into that goth, new wave, punk, and from there on, I got into punk rock, and then hardcore, grindcore, and then eventually, because there was no one playing hardcore or punk music in the little town that I came from, but there was some metalheads, and they needed a bass player. So I started playing death metal when I was around 15, 16. It was mostly because there wasn't anyone else to play with, but it grew on me and totally liked it.
So how did you ended up choosing bass as your instrument?
Well, to be totally honest, it was because it was the most easy instrument to be, when you couldn't play anything. These fingers are just not made for guitar. And it was difficult with the chords and everything. So I just started playing bass because it's only one string. And then I kept doing that.
So was like Withering Surface the first proper metal band that you joined yourself?
Yeah, well, I was in a very small band, and we played maybe 1 or 2 songs. We were actually called Ulcerate.
Okay.
Like the death metal band, but we didn't release anything. And then I met the guys from Withering Surface, and we made a band. Yeah, so that was my first real band.
So around that time when you started playing like more and more, did you had like some bassists that you looked up to as an influence?
Back in the day, very early on, I was into Simon Gallup from The Cure. But when I started listening to metal, I was really into. You remember Roger Patterson from Atheist, and Tony Choi also from Atheist, and those really skilled players. I was listening to Cynic and Steve DiGiorgio, of course. He was a big inspiration. But then I was not into just copying anyone's style. I was just playing along. I was rehearsing a lot, actually. But I had a few experiences in the studio on some of the first albums with Withering Surface, where I just found out that everything, I've been planning to do all kinds of weird shit, because in my head it sounded good. But as soon as it got on tape, and I could see the expression on the producer's face, I just found out that it was just not. I had to listen to what the other guys were playing. So as soon as I stopped rehearsing so much and doing stuff in my head, I think I became way better.
So were there like some certain songs in the beginning what you tried to cover to sort of try to get the skill to do it on a certain level?
Yeah, I tried to do. We were playing kind of melodic death metal in the Gothenburg sound, but I tried to play like I was, Steve DiGiorgio, and it just didn't fit, and I didn't have the skills at all, but it just didn't fit the music. So when I stopped rehearsing that much and planning, all my bass lines back home, when I stopped doing that, I started actually listening to what the other guys are doing. And that gave me actually more than all the rehearsing.
So that's the point where you became a better bassist in your own opinion.
Yeah. In my own opinion, I became better when I stopped practicing so much and wanted to show off.
Obviously, the early bands for you were metal bands, and now you're in Volbeat. Obviously, there's metal in Volbeat, but there's also a lot of different styles of music. So how was the jump from metal band to be a bassist in Volbeat?
I have always, until Withering Surface ended, I was playing with fingerstyle bass. But then I joined some other bands, some more hardcore crust kind of bands, some death metal, and then I started playing with a pick. And I wasn't doing any licks or anything. I was just playing very simple on top of the guitar. That was the sound that suited those bands. And I started playing with a pick when I joined Volbeat. But slowly I found out that I wanted to play fingerstyle again. And I actually, when I played with a pick, I was almost feeling like a guitar player. And I was doing riff home too and all that. But when I joined Volbeat, I kind of got that feeling to be a bass player. I got that back very slowly. And I wanted to do a little lick here and there, and I wanted to do some alternate bass lines that was just not following the guitars. So I kind of got that back, and I started practicing again. But I still listened to what the other guys were doing, of course.
So was it easier to make this Servant of the Mind album because it was the second album for you in the band? Do you feel that you are more of like in home with your own instrument now?
Yeah, on the Rewind album, I was working a lot with Rob on the bass lines. We were trying different stuff, and he was recording a lot of demos. So we were trying a lot and doing all kinds of different bass lines. But when we did Servant of the Mind, it was during lockdown, so Rob couldn't come here, so I had to do everything on my own, and I guess that was fine, because I was almost free to do whatever I want in the studio. and I'm proud of the result actually.
So do you feel that it was also more easier to make the album because you had some like now behind your belt like more shows also with the band, and the chemistry is way better? And
yeah, totally. I mean, I think it took me a full 2 years to get really into the style. I mean, into the playing of the others. I mean, it was okay in 16 and 17, but around 17, 18, that's when I felt that it felt good on stage. And the first album is, of course, different. But yeah, it's true. On the Servant album, I kind of find my own way of playing and my own style, I think. I found it back.
So do you feel that now when you're also playing like the older stuff live, which you weren't in the band, that you are still trying to put your own fingerprint to them also live, or do you try to play them in a way that they were played like before?
Well, in the beginning I tried, no, not in the beginning, but a few years ago, when we played the old songs, I was trying to do a lick here and there and do different stuff, but I'm not actually doing that anymore. Well, there are some songs, of course, that kind of, is yelling for a bass lick. But usually I'm playing it straight, the old songs, because, I mean, that's the way they sounded back then. So I shouldn't change too much. And now, when I've been doing 2 albums now with my own bass lines, so I mean, that's good enough. I don't have to show off.
So you have already accomplished yourself as a musician. You don't have to do anything to sort of show out to the world that I can play.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it is bass, and it's the kind of instrument that when you listen to a song many times, you kind of listen maybe to the bass line and you hear it, but you don't recognize it on the first listen or two. So it's always been like that. No.
Okay. Any advice you would like to give to a young musician who is just about to start to be a musician and starting to play, for example, bass or guitar or drums?
I would find someone to play with. I mean, get a band or a group together. Just have fun doing all kinds of music. And then, if you really feel for it, go and play live shows.
In terms of playing live shows, what's in the scope for Volbeat next?
After this tour?
Yeah.
I mean, this tour is like 2 months long, so it's very long, and we don't really have that specific plans for next year. There will be shows, of course, but I don't really know actually when it is. I guess there will be some festivals maybe and shows in Europe and in the US, but I don't know anything specific. We're gonna have a break after this one.
And Sir, Under the Mind will turn 1 year soon, I believe.
Yeah, in 1st of December, I think.
Yeah, I believe, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So have you already started to sort of put the focus to the next album, or do you still feel that this is like fresh enough to do?
It's still fresh. I mean, there's a lot of places we haven't played, and I mean, we haven't started writing new songs or anything. So I guess maybe after next year, well, who knows really?
Yeah.
It's Michael who writes the most of the songs. Well, all of them actually on Servant of the Mind. And when he feels the inspiration, suddenly it will come flowing.
Hey, thanks a lot for the interview and all the best for the rest of the European tour. Anything you want to say as a closer to the fans?
I think they should come out to see some of the shows here in Europe. It would be great. We're going to have a party. It's going to be fun.
Thank you.